to make our world a better place. This is the Point of Ruminations blog, the podcast Ruminations with Ohiro Oni-Eseleh, the interviews that I conduct, and the webinars that we host. It is an advance in this mission that we have as our sole panelist today, Dr. Godwin Ohiwerei, who is one of the most highly respected sociologists in the United States. Dr. Ohiwerei is a professor and past chair of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at New Jersey City University. He has presented academic papers at Yale, Princeton, Harvard, the University of Pennsylvania, Dartmouth, Oxford University, and many other universities across the United States and other countries, including France, the Dominican Republic, China, and Canada, where he is a member of the board of the Organization for the Protection of Children's Rights. He spent his summer in 2005 as a fellow at Dartmouth College Ethical Institute for the Genome Research, after being one of only 10 professors selected from all American universities to investigate the ethical, legal, and social issues of the genome research. Dr. Ohiwerei, in the speech to introduce you as the keynote speaker at the Science, Spirituality, and Society, that is the SSS conference in March of 2019, the PR executive, Ada Irene Oni-Eseleh, described you as, quote, a thought leader. And I'll say to the participants today that my inability to find better words to describe Dr. Ohiwerei is not due to lack of trying, but to the fact that his body of work leads me to believe that the words thought leader fully encapsulate his scholarship, his views on the world and on the sociopolitical matters and of our time, and that his personal and professional integrity are very well defined by the words thought leader. Several years ago, I watched Dr. Ohiwerei deliver a keynote lecture in which he described Nigeria as a failed state. Those were his words. That was years before Nigeria became the basket case that it is now. At the SSS conference in March 2019, he challenged us to consider the possibility that much of what we had believed up until that time could be wrong. Repeatedly, he asked us in that speech, quote, what if you are wrong? Since then, we have seen the collapse of centuries-old institutional structures and systems that we had all considered unshakable. We have seen claims of potent existence and successes, actions and realizations rendered hollow. I do not know what Dr. Ohiwerei will tell us today, but I know that I am curious, and I know what I'm curious about. I am curious about a sociologist's view on the plight of the African, as I now wonder why it is that there is hardly any Black-run country in the world that is efficiently governed, except for a handful. As so many people that I know also wonder, and do so openly these days, is the Black race cursed, or are we just careless? On these and other matters, I know that Dr. Ohiwerei will challenge orthodoxy, and that he will get us all to think of our positions and to rethink where we stand on matters that are more crucial for us to explore today than at any time in our lifetime. I know this because Dr. Ohiwerei is a thought leader, and that is what thought leaders do. Dr. Ohiwerei, I will ask you to take your place in just a second, but first of all, I'd like to say to our participants that throughout this time, as we dialogue today, you should please have the dialogue to continue also in the chat box, which is right in the bottom of your screen. And if you have questions for Dr. Ohiwerei, please put those questions in the Q&A box, also on the bottom of your screen. Dr. Ohiwerei, you are on deck, and welcome.
Thank you very much, my friend and colleague, Dr. Eseleh. I must say that Adelphi University need to think of themselves as lucky to have you on board, especially in the area of ethical relevance to social and intellectual thought. Unfortunately, being in the United States, it makes it a little bit difficult for those who do not know you to appreciate what you bring to the table. And I do hope that in Nigeria, especially in the area of social work, that you will be a major resource for the social institutions which we do not have, but a recognition to start to figure out how to build an institution. Thank you. What I want to do today is, I don't have solutions, I have more questions. But the questions in terms of, do we actually understand who we are as Africans? Who are we? What do we want? What is our purpose? What are we fighting for? What is wrong with our society? What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us as individuals? So, you know, one of the things is, in a lot of cases, we critique the social institutions, but we do not quite take relevance in terms of understanding where we fit individually and what our individual issues are and where we need and what we need to do in terms of building Africa. What is our purpose? Many of us, with the recent issue in the United States regarding George Floyd, brought to the table a lot of questions, and one need to give praise to the young ones, both blacks and white, who went out on the streets to demonstrate. But my thing always is, what are we demonstrating for? What do we want? As Black people, as Africans, do we just want to join the table? Do we just want to be part of what the white world or Europe and United States set as goals? What do we want? In most cases, we just want to join what is already on the table. By doing that, you fail yourself. And I want to kind of take back, let's go back some 100 years and look at philosophical thoughts. And this brings us to the issue of existentialism. What do you live for? What is your essence? What are those things that you think are so fundamentally important that you need to fight for, that you are willing to sacrifice for? Is there anything in particular that you think is so fundamentally critical that you need to maybe sacrifice for? Christ had very clear goals, and the challenges brought upon Christ sacrificed for it. He didn't sacrifice for himself, but he sacrificed for mankind. As Black people, what do we sacrifice for? What do we want? What are we about? What do we want for us, separate from what everybody else set up? That only when we define ourselves in the script of the Europeans, the Chinese, the rest of the world. Only when we follow that script are we considered to be legitimate. Are we legitimate only by that? How do we define legitimacy? How do we define ourselves? What is relevant for us? If I can't speak English, I'm considered to be literate in Nigeria, in English-speaking countries. If I'm in French-speaking countries, I'm illiterate if I cannot speak French. In Portuguese-speaking Africa, I'm illiterate if I cannot speak Portuguese. If I'm in Namibia, a whole different situation. So who are we? Do we continue to engage as others see us? Do we only need relevance in terms of how others see us? Oh, so suddenly because I'm sitting on the table with the CEO of a particular company and he happens to be white, or because United Nations, made one a member of an association, therefore as a Black person, I feel that I have quote unquote arrived. How do we define ourselves outside of how others define us? This is the critical issue, because we are all fighting that we are disrespected. If you are fighting that we are disrespected, what are you fighting for? What do you want? Do you just want to be another white person in Black skin? You want to be the one in the room who speaks the best, you have the best diction and, and language that is not yours. So what I'm saying is existential being, that is, who are we? So let me go to John Paul Sartre, some will say Sartre. And he talks about the absurdity of the world. John Paul said, we are free. We are born free, independent, but we decide to put ourselves in chains. For example, we say we have a destiny preordained by God. John Paul said, we are free. If the destiny is there, therefore, I'm limiting who I am. What are my potentials? The same John Paul also indicated, and let me read this. He said, man is nothing else but what he proposes. He exists only insofar as he realizes himself. He is therefore nothing else but the sum of his activities. Nothing else but what life is. So who are we? So this brings me to the table, especially for the African. A lot of African countries, just about all African countries, celebrate independence every year. They spend a lot of money celebrating. Independence from who? Who put you in chains that you are now celebrating? Celebrating what? You gain independence from who? Just gain independence from France, from England? So is that how you determine your freedom? Is that how you determine who you are? Every year you now celebrate. So people came from outside, came into your environment, put you in chains, and one day they decided you've now matured to be able to lead yourself, and we are going to free you. And so they gave you independence. And so every year you celebrate. What is this independence that you celebrate? Most of the African countries we have, just about all of the African countries are English speaking, they are tied to a Commonwealth. The French are tied to France. So what are you celebrating? Independence of what? Are you free? We can't even control our resources. We can't even control our institutions. We can't even control our children. The best of us in Africa, the very best of us in Africa, those with the opportunities, those who have the opportunity to be able to exhibit their freedom, are the first to enslave themselves. Look at all the rich people in Africa. Where do they send their children to go to school? They send them to the best schools in Europe and America to do what? To replicate exactly who those people are. So their children graduate from the best universities in the world, and those kids cannot walk the streets of Lagos or their village. They are completely lost. Read their degrees on the wall. You will not believe what these people are. How is it functional to Africa? Go to Nigeria today. Go to Ghana. Go to most of these capitals of nations. Look at their best institutions, quote unquote, their best institutions. They have their blazers on with their ties. They go to school in that heat. They don't dress in whatever they consider to be African dress. They Europeanize. And guess what? In the summer, these schools initiate summer trips, not to go to the village or to understand their society, not to study their society. They go to Switzerland, they go to Europe. They spend their summers there to come back home. So my thing is, who are we? Is the critical question, because until we understand who we are and what we stand for, we continue to borrow. Now we are studying Mandarin because the Chinese are in Africa. Now we are now going to start speaking Mandarin, and China is now the place to go. Nigeria, one of every 4 Africans in Nigeria, where we have over 200 million Nigerians. We have over 100 universities. Our main resource, which is oil, petroleum, we have no control. We absolutely have no control. For the last 60 years, Nigerians have been producing oil, and Shell, Chevron, and these foreign companies are the ones running it. We cannot even control our resources. Our main resources, we cannot control it. So what is this education for? So of all these 100+ universities, what are we producing? They produce first-class students. We produce petroleum engineers, engineers of all categories. We produce doctors, we produce lawyers. What do we do? What do we do? You know, of what essence is it? And so my issue, especially with academia, is that the Africans copying the Europeans and trying to measure up, forget their essence. Look, in the United States, in order for an undergrad to even start their major, their area of discipline, they need 2 years of general studies. You will have to go through the humanities, the social science, irrespective of what you want to study. You must complete the credits in these areas because you're supposed to be molded as a citizen, a rounded, educated person. You are not accounting. engineering, I want to read medicine, and yet you've not taken a course in philosophy. The humanities in Africa is trashed. Nobody wants their children to go into the humanities. If your child, if a quote unquote a brilliant child tells the parent, I want to read philosophy, they will swear on that kid. If you disrespect the humanities, the areas of humanities, you have lost your essence, because you do not know who you are. Because all you want to do is become a robot that is controlled and doesn't know themselves, right? You don't know who you are, but you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you don't even know. I mean, many of us can't even speak the local dialect. Worse, Africans don't even want their children to know and to be able to speak in their native dialect, when both parents are from the same place. They want to create these mini Europeans in their homes. You have a maid who cannot speak English, at best speaks pidgin English, but you won't speak pidgin English to the maid. You speak your Queen's English to the maid. What is wrong in speaking pidgin English? What is wrong in terms of a president of a country speaking to the people in pidgin English that most people understand? Look at our journalists. They go to the marketplace to interview people. They know these people are not quote unquote educated, yet they speak English to these people, and then this one or two of them, in trying to measure up, try to speak in the same manner of the journalist, and then everybody's laughing because their diction is wrong. The hopelessness of our state of being is of essence. So the key here, first of all, in terms of the existentialism I'm talking about, is in terms of knowing yourself, knowing who you are. All right, so I digress. 400 years ago, we were living on our own, no Europeans. 500 years, let me take it back, 500 years ago, no Europeans. We were doing our own thing. We were running our own institutions. We had our native doctors. They would go into the bush and pick anything out there, and they have remedies for whatever you want to, right? Benin City as it is today, Benin City, Nigeria, Benin City, Edo State. If you go to Benin City today, they set up, the structure of Benin City was set up 400 years ago by the Oba. All roads lead to the palace. In 2020, 400 years later, it has not changed. And yet the people say they are developed. Not that they are developed, but they praise their leaders as developing the place. The road maintenance is development. It brings me to another question in terms of what progress have we made since then, since our interaction with Europeans? What have we achieved better than what we had 400 years ago? Two, Africans believe in God, but they have different methods and different deities. We were introduced to Christianity by the Europeans. Some will argue it. I'm not a specialist in the area, but we were made to trash all our deities. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who is from River State in Nigeria said when he was growing up, when you were baptized, you had to pick up an English name. And the reason for it is because you need an English name to go to heaven. Right? You need an English name to go to heaven. So your first name is English, and then they can give you other names. Worse, today, there are many Africans who are Christians that have changed their name because they say it is not Christian, because it has Ogun, Shango, Ovia, and all of these names that goes with it, and it is not Christian. So they change it. How many of them change their English name to the local names? How far do we have to go to want, for us to be accepted? This whole issue in terms of who we are. Because if you do not define yourself, somebody else is going to define you. Okay, so for the last 400 years, especially if we look at the United States and we see, for Europeans and Americans, I can say, yes, definitely Christ has been functional in the lives of most people. Look at the society, see the development of the societies. But look at the way they handle Christianity. Look at the way they handle Christianity. Look and see the way Africans handle Christianity. When I say handle Christianity, I'm talking about how they live it, right? Hume, who is one of the philosophers, he said, we are nothing but a bundle or collection of different perceptions, which succeed each other with an inconceivable rapidity and in perpetual flux and movement. Trying to be rational about everything is a special kind of madness. Right? Africans are told that we are driven by emotions, which is bad. We are people with soul. We are people with emotions. We have been made to disregard them. So this is what Hume is saying. He said, trying to be rational about everything is a special kind of madness. So since we have been practicing Christianity, right, what have we gotten? How has it benefited? Now, individually, we can count the benefits. Institutionally, can you tell me what we have gained through Christianity? As nations, African nations, what have you gained? Are we better off than we were 100 years ago as a continent? We are more, quote unquote, more godly than any other group. But what does it mean? What do we mean by that? How do you defend that? African Americans for 400 years, the struggle for 400 years of being in this country. With the belief is always God will see us through. It's 400 years. Should we be asking other questions? Go on Sundays to churches in Nigeria. It's packed. From Monday to Friday, they're stealing. On Sundays, they're in church. But they're in church on Sunday to thank God for what they stole from Monday through Friday. Okay, let's go back. Just take Christ, for instance. Kierkegaard. I want to just make this. Kierkegaard stated, he said, Christianity means total submission to Jesus Christ. A religion of extreme surrender peasant-like simplicity. One must be ready to die for Christ. To be a Christian, to give up all attachments to worldly things. Love all humans like your own siblings. Not to justify religion through rational means. It calls it leap of faith. What is leap of faith? Switch off rational faculty and jump into the ideas of God and total submission. To have faith is to lose your mind and to win God. Now, if that's true, how come we preach the religion of worldly good? I want to be rich. Look at the preachers today. They have the best clothes, they have the best home. Kierkegaard said, if you want to be Christ-like, you must appeal to peasant-like simplicity. The discipline is for me to be able to step away from this worldly stuff and then walk like Christ. It's not to be Christ-like is not for me to figure out how I'm going to be a millionaire and then give my 10% to church and then live the life and then say, I have been blessed by God. It is extremely challenging to be a Christian because it takes a lot for you to move from that high level of materialism and then walk your way down to peasant-like simplicity. So all I'm saying, all I'm addressing is, who are you? So what is education for? What is religion for? All these practices we have engaged in, have we looked at ourselves critically to say, this is who we are, this is what we want to pursue, this is what we're ready to die for? Or is it just simply an issue of let white people accept me and let me be able to build a home where they build theirs, my children go to the schools they go to, that kind of integration, and then I feel that I have achieved. I have achieved because I have been accepted by those that I consider to be rational, indirectly submitting myself to nothingness. So this is, what I want us to start to challenge ourselves to. Reason is the slave of passion. Reason is the slave of passion. Look, you can be the most educated person, but you walk down the street, a guy down the street who knows the street better than you will make you a fool. Reason are sentimental illusions. Passion, we submit to passion. If you cannot run your family with reason, rational thought, your wife and children will throw you out. The passion is very critical to it. And I'm going to make this last statement and pause, and Dr. Ohiro, you can, we can digress from that to another level. What I consider to be the cultural deficit of the African, the cultural deficit, the outstanding cultural deficit of the African. God first, other second, self last. We have been punished immensely for it, and we continue to fail with it. We never put ourselves first. In an African home, if they are receiving visitors, that's when the wife is going to cook or the husband is going to cook the best meal they've had for the week. As a matter of fact, I had a friend that used to tell me, "God, please visit us often, because when you visit, I get to eat good food." It's not out of line. I know it's a joke, but it's not out of line. God first, other second, self last. That's the reason why South Africans say, they gave us the Bible, told us to close our eyes, and they took the land. We are a welcoming people, but it has been destructive for us. It's a cultural deficit. You have culture, we talk about, but there's bad culture. There's good culture, right? So until we respect the areas of the humanities, we have to start to take philosophy very seriously. We have to take culture very seriously. We have to learn these things. We have to learn about who we are. We are not going to do anything good. We are not going to find ourselves. We continue to just walk in the wilderness. Look where we are today. All over the world, nothing. All over the world, nothing. When I say nothing, well, it's all material. Our pursuit is all material. I want my child to be a doctor. I want my child to be a lawyer. I want my child. Look at some people. They will show that all their 5 kids are medical doctors, and we sing their praises. Do you know any medical doctor who is rich compared to a politician? All my children are medical doctors. All my children are medical doctors, engineers, and lawyers. Do you know anyone who is rich compared to your local chairman in your village who is a politician? You keep pushing the children to go, but you don't want them to do philosophy. If it's a question of money, if at the end of the day it's a question of money, why do I need to want my child to be a medical doctor when he can be a scammer, and in 1 year he'll make enough money for the whole family to live in for the rest of our lives? Do we actually understand when we say we want to do something? Do we respect it well enough to make it viable and workable? I'm just throwing out questions. Solutions are a whole different issue. So let me pause there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ohiwerei. I like to do this because I then can take the liberty of asking the first question. But before I do that, there is someone from India who is watching on Facebook and has said, it is important to know our roots well. It doesn't matter where we're from. That's what we need in order to have a balanced identity. It seems to me that you would agree with that.
Not only do I agree with that, but I think a study, if you look at India, intellectualism comes out of their being, right? In other words, you find a lot of what we call gurus out there, right? With major following. What are they doing? They continue to challenge thought, their essence. So they are never very far from who they are. We have nothing like that. If you challenge a pastor, you are excommunicated. Look at it. So what I'm saying is, oh yes, we need to get to that rule, because also, I'm not very versed in Indian philosophy, but one of the things is, no matter the success, humility is a very essential part of being, because you need to be grounded in order for you to achieve. So that struggle is very essential. How do I succeed and at the same time be humble? You know, these are the challenges. You know, this is the reason why the most educated person in the family is the one that everybody walks over. Because if the educated person in the family want to assert themselves, they say because of his education, he has elevated himself and he has no respect for anybody. But whenever other people jump on you and they treat you like trash, it doesn't mean anything. But if you decide to stand up, oh, now. So how do you manage that? You are up here and you are this humble enough to be able to interact with anybody that you have out there. Anybody. Your ability to be able to communicate from the lowest person to the highest person in itself creates a very learned process.
I have another question, which says, would you agree with the idea that Africans have a self-defeating mentality that is seeking to be free, except that it's not clear what that mentality is trying to free itself from?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You have independence. Independence from what? Why are you celebrating independence? Can you imagine the first man, the richest continent, the first humans have subjected themselves to gaining freedom from those who, when Africans were at their best, they were walking in the bushes. These are the ones that now gives us freedom. Look, America did it to Native Americans. The Europeans did it to Native Americans. They came to the United States, well, what we call United States. They come to America, conquer the people. What happened? They opened themselves up, received these Europeans. These Europeans slaughtered them. All you have to do is go look at Trail of Tears. Slaughtered them. At the end of the day, they decided, okay, we are going to do good. Guess what? Native Americans who own the land, who they came here to conquer, they gave them citizenship. They gave Native American citizenship. Whites gave them Native American citizenship of their own place. And we have a date, and people are expected to celebrate when Native Americans became Americans and were given citizenship out of the goodness of the Europeans. These Africans always walk around talking about when they are in America, all these Africans you find in America, they want to distinguish themselves as they are better than. You see all these things, Nigerians are better, the Nigerians, Ghanaians, Africans are more successful than whites. Africans who come to America, you know, just all you have to do is come in here and do ABC. They pride themselves around the place. Walking around, priding themselves. Guess what? They are mental slaves. Because all they want is they want to be like the European, walk in their steps, and see themselves as accomplished because they have achieved. It's all material again. It's all material. So the difference between us and the difference between Africans and African Americans, when Africans who are here say, I'm not a slave. I didn't come here in shackles. But your mind is, the African Americans who are here is very obvious. Yes, were taken from Africa and brought here as slaves. No, you weren't taken from Africa and brought here as slaves, but they came to Africa and enslaved your minds. Until today, you are not independent. Nkrumah failed. Nkrumah failed because African leaders could not contain themselves to Pan-Africanism. They were scared of it because their masters, the French and the English, told them not to. And they destroyed Nkrumah. What was Nkrumah? W.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois fought so hard for Africa. An African American, first African American to graduate from Harvard. Read the autobiography of W.E.B. Du Bois. You will never be the same again. Autobiography of W.E.B. Du Bois. You will never. Look, his speeches are as current as tomorrow. The double consciousness he talks about. He left, went to Ghana. Nkrumah took him as his father. They went to start to build Ghana. Guess what? America was so scared of him because he is the one that came up, he started NAACP. He said, the talented tenth is the measure. We are not going to be subordinate. The same thing, Frederick Douglass. We are not going to be subordinate. We are going to challenge the institutions. The talented tenth must work hard to be able to challenge institutions that we have. He went to Ghana to help build Ghana. Guess what? The United States revoked his citizenship. A man born in a free country, the #1 democracy in the world, they seized his. He was stateless. He died in Ghana. And they made sure they destroyed everything Nkrumah was doing. Ghana was so advanced that Nigeria couldn't get close to Ghana. The people that, especially Nigerians, Nigeria has been one of the most conservative countries in the continent and one of the most mentally enslaved group that we have in the continent. That if Nigerians could free their mind, the continent will be different. As long as Nigerians keep trapped in terms of their mental slavery, Africa is not going to move anywhere. 1 of every 4 Africans is a Nigerian. And the resources of the continent lies within with them. So all I'm saying is, yes, there's no freedom. We are just walking around looking for jobs with a degree that will give us roof over our heads. That's it.
I have 2 people have asked if you will talk about the way forward, what the solutions might be. And as you consider that, I'd like to take you back to March 2019, where as I recall it, I was the one who moderated the question and answer session of the conference, the SSS conference, where you were the keynote speaker. And I recall asking you perhaps just one question. I said, I know you're not a prophet, I know you're a scholar, but if you had a crystal ball, and I asked you to look in the crystal ball, where do you see our world in the next few years? What will your crystal ball tell you? And on that day, this was just a year and a half ago, you said fear, just one word, fear. And you said, because as I look at the state of our world and the state of us as human beings and where we're going, I'm paraphrasing, you said, I think that the worst is yet to come. I think that we will have some really bad times ahead. And well, everyone knows that we've had some really bad times this year so far, and we're still reeling as a world. So if you think about that and answer within the context of what I have just presented, if you would answer the question of the 2 people, one is from Canada, from Edmonton, Canada, the other one is from Nigeria. They both want to know what your suggestions will be for the way forward. Do you think it's hopeless? And if not, what do you think Africans can do?
It's a tough question, but it's going to get worse. I don't know if it will get better yet because there are no signs that it will. It's going to get worse because what is going on right now is a concentration of capital within a very, very small, African Americans control almost $2 trillion, right? And when I talk to friends, people always say, we need to make our dollar work for us. In other words, how we spend it and what we do with it, right? And I always say, the problem with us as Africans globally is that we are a bunch of consumers. It seems like this is what we do best. We buy the best of things. I mean, we not only buy the best of things, we try to show off what we don't even have. You know, I can even come to your house and borrow your car just to drive around, you know, take a picture with it and put on Facebook. People borrow other people's clothes to wear and put on Facebook. And the ones that is good, you know, the one now is there, you know, women bleaching and, you know, and consumptive mentality. So why are we saying controlling $2 trillion, how do we spend it, who do we spend it with, becomes important? That is a defeatist mentality. We are not talking about what you build with it. We are talking about what you buy with it, right? So looking forward, the number one thing we must do is curriculum change. Curriculum change from kindergarten through 6th grade. I don't want to look, big plans don't work. Big plans don't work. Number one is, who are we? What do we need to teach our children? What should we be about, right? So curriculum change. We don't really do history anymore. You know, when I was in school, we read Chaucer, Donne, right? Shakespeare. At the same time, there was what was called West African verse, where I read about Shoinka and the others, J.P. Clark, right? That was where I got introduced to Abiku. I didn't know what Abiku is, right? While I'm reading Shakespeare and I'm reading Macbeth, at the same time, I'm able to read Abiku. And when we were in school, we were supposed to intellectualize this, you know, these readings. Curriculum change in the sense, we did geography, we did history, but guess what? Doing geography, we were doing North America. What are we studying North America for? You are never going to leave Africa. You don't know about the erosion that is taking place around the corner of your house, but you know about Canada, the prairies. People say, make hay while the sun shines. Do you know that as a kid, for a long time, I couldn't understand what that is, because I never saw where that was happening in Benin City. Make hay while the sun shines. And people use it, right? So the curriculum is important, right? Once we define who we are, once we understand what we need to be thinking about, and okay, so looking forward is define independence, define freedom. Africans need to define independence. They need to define freedom. What does that mean? What are the essence of the African, right? So the curriculum needs to be geared towards making sure that learning is about us. Learning is not about Europe. Because guess what happens? The reason why I say there's no hope right now, all of those we are educating are being educated to leave the continent. Do you know that People say when I'm in Nigeria, when I'm in Ghana, when I'm in Somalia, when I'm in South Africa, when I'm in Egypt, they say nothing happened for me until I left and went to Europe and life has been good. Why? Oh, they say because our institutions are bad. Or because I applied for a job and ethnicity was a problem and so I left. It's not just that. It's that the education you received is for you to walk outside the continent. It's not for the continent. You are raised as a mini European to go join your people. Once you get it, listen, any African, English-speaking African, if they get to America today, they know strangers. They are home. As a matter of fact, they pride themselves as knowing more than the locals. So my point is, we need to start to understand who we are and to make the fight ours. That's the key. So right now, there's no hope because our training is not for ourselves. Our training is to be like others. And who is the one studying Africans? The Europeans are the ones studying Africans. If I need to know about Africa, all I have to do is go to Cuba and go to Brazil. They have kept the original traditions of Africans better than Africans have.
Right. One questioner asks, unconditional acquaintances to authority is a major element in African culture, but has been the source of untempered corruption. How do you reconcile assertiveness among citizenry with the unassailable power of our leaders?
Okay, good. It brings us back again to the humanities, right? Before, growing up, we had we were given, you took home 2 report cards to your parents, the academic and conduct. Your parents looked at both. The fact that you are doing well, but if your conduct is not good, it handicaps you. All right? So the school gives you 2, conduct. So you worked on those 2 levels. Ethics, civics, right? Those were very important. Today, no. It goes back to the material. So corruption is an operational structure in the African system. It's alive and well. As a matter of fact, if you are not corrupt, you're going to suffer. If you're not corrupt, you're going to suffer. You will not make it well. Because these institutions are built on that. So you go to Africans and say, this governor is not doing well. They're not treating you good. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. He's going to fight you. Because the political indoctrination and the social indoctrination is the relevance of ethnicity and regionalism. That's core in the mindset of the African, right? A country like Nigeria played into that game, unfortunately. They started with 4 regions, right? They started to advocate. The politicians started to advocate. My people are not represented. My people are not represented. We are being, we are being sidelined. Rather than fight to make it happen, they decided to go for the easy way out. All right, we're going to create states that is going to represent these ethnic groups and let them develop on their own. So they end up with 30 whatever states they have today. They still want more. But then within those states, they found out that there are again divisions within the state of people still feeling that they are, they do not have, the sense of being. So once again, you find yourself in a situation that you feel lost. So my thing is corruption. In order to deal with corruption, the current democratic process that is in place will not work. So what needs to happen is institutional building. Look, there are laws in the books. There are laws in the books all over, but these laws themselves are not functional. So how do you make the judiciary strong? How do you make, the executive strong? And so a people that have been reduced to nothingness is now an issue that becomes very critical. They've been reduced to nothingness. So where is the power, right? We need to build foundations in order to deal with this. So these are the issues that we have. And so, like I said, we need to create foundations, especially for those who are outside the country, to be able to fight this nemesis, because otherwise there's going to be problem. But as it is right now, it's extremely powerful. The political system is so powerful that people are so weak that, crumbs is what they all have. So, we need to move in the direction where, first of all, let us study the system and understand what is wrong with it. Just one example. I was making some argument with some individuals. One of the things about Nigeria is they said there's no godfatherism, because that is really messing up the system. You have these political lords who just use other politicians as puppets, right? And then I asked the question, why is it that the people fighting against godfatherism, like the governors, are also the ones who themselves, when they leave office, they have 200 million naira to their name, a house in Abuja, a house in their state, and retirement for life with a package? How do you make, who voted for that in a poor society where $1 a day is used? $1 a day. $1 a day is what people survive on. Then you have a governor who probably has stolen. And yet when you retire, the state, from the budget, you get 200 million, a house in the federal capital, a house in the, where does it happen? And then you ask the people, why do you allow this to happen? You know what some of them told me? They told me, why is it that is when somebody from my area, which means ethnic group, is now governor, that this question is now being brought up? Why wasn't it brought up in the last time so-and-so was governor? And my question is, what are you benefiting from it personally? So these are the challenges. Only through the educational process, whereby we have institutions that are independent. How do we then get those institutions that are independent? Private institutions that the goal is to define this. I don't like the religious, those private institutions, because, they are so structured and so limited. So we cannot use that. So the point is to be able to, create a, this educational system that at least helps people learn as to their fundamental basis. Yes.
Well, there is a question that I think is also quite important. The question is, if we are advocating the humanities, how could we get Nigeria and the Nigerian society to respect a course like philosophy in Nigerian schools, considering where we've been?
It won't happen. So the easiest way for this to happen is this. I think some of us who are outside need to create foundations. Look, like I said, big plans don't work. You can create a foundation among your friends of 30, even if it's 1,000 naira that you have, right? 1,000 naira. If you, I mean, you can do better than that. But you can put a part and go to a particular institution and say, look, we have 30,000 naira towards a chair, an endowed chair, right? We will get somebody to come to your school to teach this. You don't have to pay for it. We're not going to go through the system where Ministry of Education and all of this is going. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, let us start to take initiative in terms of what is of interest to us. We institute it and watch it and see exactly. In other words, we go to this school, say primary school, from primary 1 to primary 6. There's going to be a African philosophy course on, we're going to sponsor it. If it means paying the teacher, we will pay the teacher. Take one little area that you think is of importance. Just focus on it. You can't do the country. Start something that others see that becomes relevant. Because 30,000 naira, 100,000 naira, I don't like to think too big. I'm talking about something that individually we can take an initiative on. Individually, we can put away 100,000 naira to a school and say, look, we want African philosophy to be taught. This is the person who's going to teach it. This is exactly the curriculum. They will take it from 1 to 6. When they get to 6, they're going to make a presentation. Parents, teachers meeting. These students are going to present the African. See, once you start from that scratch, it's tough to lose it. It's tough to lose it. Number 2, if to major in philosophy in African country, who get a job, right? But once you start to institute this kind of little programs, you are indirectly creating jobs. But other schools are going to see it and say, okay, we want to also initiate African thought within our school system. We want to hire somebody that our children can also. That is how you create space and learning. So all I'm now saying is, changing government is not going to work. Can we take initiatives, right? In integrative remuneration, you can say, look, you want to start a foundation, basic foundation. And I'm proposing it to everybody that is watching, basic foundation, and say, first, we're going to raise 100,000 naira. We're going to identify a school, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Just for that school, we're going to watch it 3 years. Every year, we put some money together and watch this go. And at the end, we watch our graduates and see who they are, what they've become. What they've become. Because if you give them that fundamental education, I'm telling you, they get to be very grounded individuals. The parents will see it at home too. When you teach your child African philosophy, the parents will see the changes in the lives of the children. They will see the changes in the life of the children. Because we cannot just be doing sciences, school of technology. The best American universities are liberal arts institution. Right by me here is Swarthmore University. The whole university is 1,800 students. That's it. From freshman to senior, the whole student body is 1,800. Guess what their endowment is? Their endowment is $2 billion. From whom? From their graduates. So, if we want to start to look forward, right? I mean, I don't like big plans, million days. No, let's do baby steps. This road is long. We are very destroyed, mentally destroyed group. This road is long, and the building is going to take time. There's nothing that is going, there's nothing promising. And let me just round it up by, in terms of what, on this track. The $2 trillion that I say African Americans control, right? And they want to make an impact with them. We're saying we need to do something with it. I told a friend, I said, I can list 5 white families in America. White families, I'm not talking 5 families. Vestos, and all of this, Gates, 5 families, 5 families. What? That's $2 trillion. So what are you talking about? What are you talking about in the real scheme of things? What are you talking about? One family controls 500 billion of a business, and the children are worth 200 billion. One family, father, one family. Very soon, at the concentration of wealth that is going on, there are going to be families that can buy an African country. They will rent it. They will go to the president and say, cut yourself off from everybody else, and we will take care of you and your people. And they will own it. Nothing stops anybody from going to Africa to buy land and own it today. I saw a European in Accra, a white lady in Accra selling property, a development that is just for foreigners. A white lady in Accra in real estate selling to those who are coming to Ghana to buy property. They will take over unless Africans decide to wake up. So the point is, it's not going to get better anytime soon. It's going to get worse. It's just going to get too bad because human beings are now rusticated in the continent. They sell them. They do whatever they want to do with them. There is no leadership.
Right. This question is from an attorney in Lagos who I would like to bring on in a minute to say something. His question is, what role should we expect from Africans in diaspora in the quest for the mental and economic development of Africa?
Now, understand that people, there a very large number of Africans in the diaspora are not interested in Africa. They've cut themselves out completely for whatever reasons. But a sizable number are interested and they are trying to figure out how to. So in the diaspora, all I'm saying for those in the diaspora is center your purpose, and a lot are doing it now. Sending medical facilities home, going to Nigeria to give things out. But I don't see those as long-standing. This idea of gifts, teach a man to fish, right? So those of us in the diaspora, the time will come when many of us will be retired. And to those who are retired now, I think your services are needed, especially in the in the core areas. If you're a university professor, you're going to Nigeria to spend a month, and during school time, you can set up with the university and teach students. Have an if you're a doctor, adopt a hospital and share your knowledge with this. We just need, look, not giving things out, sharing. But there's the downside to it, right? I went to Nigeria. My university was interested in getting students. We created a grant whereby we get students to be able to come to the US. And I was able to work with 4 universities to plan, to be able to do this. And I went to Nigeria. And by the way, when I went to Nigeria, I caught the local transport that took me from Abuja all the way to Aba. I wasn't flying around. I said, I'm going to see the country. So I used the local transport. I didn't tell anybody because nobody would support that move. But the point is this. Do you know how long it took for me I could not even reach a particular VC. Doesn't know me, won't pick the call. And I was advised to go through some channels to find who knows the VC so that the VC can get the message of this opportunity. And I told them, I said, I am leaving the US, I'm paying my way to come offer you something. And there's a protocol for me to be able to talk to the VC, because if the VC doesn't know me, so I have to go beg somebody to be able to get me in touch with the VC. Do you know it? Finally, I was able to they set up among the other 3, I just don't want to go into the others, but this one in particular. I arrived at the university only to tell me that the VC went to Abuja on a meeting. Okay, something came up. Okay, did the VC set up, anyone or a committee to discuss these issues with? No. That was it. The grant went to another African country. Can you imagine? Once certain people get into a position of power, you can't even get in touch with them anymore. They are holier than thou. The people they serve become their puppet, right? They are now PAs, personal assistant, that handles the phone of some CEO. That's his job. He stands on the side, handle the phone. Who is calling? I don't know the person. Shut it down. So we don't even have avenues. So this is why I'm saying, create a foundation. Those in the diaspora, create a foundation. Not a foundation of handing out gifts. A foundation of sharing skills, right? That's very important. And one can then engage with them. But whenever you go to Africa, whenever you're visiting your family, if you can just find 1-2 days to be able to have an engagement with a group of people, you do that. You've done that, Dr. Sel. You've done that. You've gone to Nigeria. You've had these conferences. You had these meetings. You've been doing this. So what I'm saying, we need to share our skills. What are we going to do with it? Right? And in the process of sharing the skills, you get to identify certain people that, hey, you can come back to the group and say, this person is doing great works back home. How can we support them? Right? It doesn't matter what. Sometimes the support that you give, the person is not really looking for money. The person is just looking for access. Right? So mine is always start on an elementary level. Something you can control. Not the one of saying we want to change the president, change the governor, change all of that. System building from grassroots. All right, we have the capital to be able to do it from outside. That's how you gain your influence. And then you can also carry, you go to one of these newspapers or wherever and you advertise whatever it is. But skills sharing is very critical at this point. We have a lot of Africans in the diaspora, retired, sitting at home, doing nothing.
I think that you've spoken to this, but someone did say wanted to know, what do you think has driven the behavior change? Because Africans weren't always like this.
It wasn't always like this. What happened, listen, television, the media did a lot of game on us. You know, some of us when we were growing up, you know, there was no TV, there was just radio, okay? So if you were in the local area, right, that's all you knew. You grew up there, you socialized there, you did everything there, that was your life, right? And then cable came. I remember in the 80s in Nigeria, the 90s, cable coming in. Somebody in the village today is watching CNN. He has not a dime in his pocket. He's watching CNN. And he wants to be a millionaire. So, you know, the world is now just a small piece. Our interaction is huge. Just take your phone, click it, and you're in New York. Click it. You know, you're in Seattle. Click it. You're in Tokyo. So we started to use short channels. This is where the skimming came through, right? Corruption built from this. Corruption is what has ruined us, and it was gradual. The other thing you have to also understand is the breakdown of the social institutions. The breakdown of the institutions in the sense that, just a minute here. Let me just read this quickly. A failed state. A failed state is a political body that has disintegrated to a point where basic conditions and responsibilities of a sovereign government no longer functions properly. A state can also fail if the government loses its legitimacy, even if it is performing its functions properly. For a stable state, it is necessary for the government to enjoy both effectiveness and legitimacy. Likewise, when a nation weakens and its standard of living declines, it introduces the possibility of total government collapse and corruption. Loss of control of its territory, erosion of legitimate authority, inability to provide public services, inability to interact with other states as full members. You lose your legitimacy and you lose your credibility. The same question can be asked. How is it that there's no running water, there's no electricity, and we are talking about building a nation state? How do you do that? You want to go to the moon, you are building cars, but you can't provide your people clean water, no electricity. But you want to build cars. Number one, you know, the leading economies of the continent. No power. So people are using generators and building. They live in their own country. Their home is a nation state. Power supplied by them, water supplied by them, all of the essentials supplied by them. What do you need the state for? Why will you respect the state? That is the disintegration. It was gradual until it became acceptable. Nobody talks about that anymore. Ask Nigerian, what is development to you? Ask Ghanaian, ask these Africans, what is development to you? Basic essentials they've given up on. They've given up on basic essentials. Yeah. They never expect that from government.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just got what's really quite a provocative statement, which many Africans will argue with. But does make sense within the context of this conversation. His point is that based on how you've looked at society in your work, Africans are definitely failed, African countries are definitely failed states. And then he makes the point that it seems to him that Maslow, if you look at his hierarchy of needs, that Maslow makes no sense, has no meaning to Africans, because they are not even attending to the basic needs of the people and want to build the,
Yes.
the structures that you're talking about. But what I like to do before we go on and then close in the next few minutes is to ask someone who is in Nigeria right now to actually come on and just say to us, I'm just going to ask him one question. How bad is it? He's an attorney in Lagos. Ben?
Yes, please, Ohiro.
Yes, so how bad is it?
I didn't get that.
I said, how bad is it? How bad is the situation there in Africa?
Oh, very bad, very bad. The lecturer has actually captured it. The situation is very bad, but not because of leadership. You see, what a nation becomes, to a large extent, is determined by the quality of leadership it has. And the situation here, the process of leadership selection is so flawed that oftentimes the worst gets elected and the cycle continues. So I think that in having this conversation, we should be focusing more on how to generate the right leadership to make a change. As bad as it is in Nigeria, there are a few states you would notice some semblance of leadership and makes all the difference. I don't know if you know of a man called Peter Obi. He was the governor of Anambra State for 8 years. When he was the governor, his state was getting less than 3 billion naira monthly as federal allocation. Now, he did so much with this money. Yet in some states in the Delta, where governors were getting as much as 15 billion, 18 billion naira monthly within the same period, not only did they not do well, they also borrowed money locally and for overseas, and nothing to show for it. So you see the difference. A man did so much with so little, and someone else did nothing with so much. So I think even Nigeria's diaspora should help us to galvanize forces to ensure that we're able to select the right people to change. Unfortunately, and I must say this here, a few persons are come from overseas and they were trusted to make a difference. As soon as they came, unfortunately, they joined the bandwagon and to the Western countries. So where will our help come from? Even those who are exposed to societies with less corruption will come here and allow themselves to be submerged by a big problem with what they will come to help us to get out of. So I think in the further analysis, to reduce the incidence of suffering, incidence of mass misery in the midst of plenty, we need to all focus on leadership. Because with it, you're going to get things right in Africa. If we don't, and we keep letting these people that's in power, as you will have noticed lately about the Niger Delta Development Commission, there's a probe going on. It is so incredible how human beings could just sit down and enjoy seeing others suffer. Money voted to ameliorate the suffering of the Delta citizens are being misused, not by people from other tribes, but by leaders from that same region. And you ask yourself, what is it about? In fact, in any of this act, specifically says that to be MD of that commission, you must be from Niger Delta. The thinking was to ensure that people who understood the problem were made to lead so that they could focus clearly and squarely on the problems. But they got in there, followed the mandate, and just went on personal aggrandizement. So it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy because We have resources to transform our society. But this incident of primitive accumulation has really made it impossible for us to make major progress. And this can happen everywhere, not just in Nigeria. So it's a major issue for worry. We should focus a lot more, in my view, on leadership transition process, how we can change this game and make leadership work for Nigerians and other Africans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor, do you have a question for him or a comment? By the way, you can ask any question. Mr. Ohiwerei is one of the biggest attorneys in Lagos. And I know you watch Nigerian television, so he's frequently on Channels TV.
The thing we lack is investigative journalism. A lot of these journalists are for sale. Until we need investigative journalism, because we did not have to wait for NDDC situation to occur, to be exposed for us to start to hear about what was going on. It's always been like that. This is what, when I talked about how politicians were able to use ethnicity and regionalism to promote, I said we had 4 states, and I said they were able to use regionalism and ethnicity to divide. This was exactly it. So you form Niger Delta, body to say, okay, use this to develop your area. But everything because of the fact that the institutions do not work well. And I said, if you're not corrupt, you will suffer, because the road is more tedious for you in a country like Nigeria. You're just going to suffer. Your family, if you're not careful, your wife and children will start to mock you because you are not taking advantage of an opportunity. I know somebody who is an MD, someone down the chain, 6th level down the chain, is living the life that MD, and people are laughing at him because they just found out that this person on the totem pole built a huge mansion in his village. But what actually happens to people that get fingered and caught? Nothing. So the NNDC case, look, the regional politics says there's nothing you can actually do about it, because they're going to say the Northerners wants to do this to us. Okay, so how do you actually deal with the problem that exists there? So this is what has happened on television. The National Assembly decided, okay, let's make it look like we are doing something. So they bring in these people, and Akpabio, the minister, looked at them and said, 60% of you are in this game. They shut the thing down. Then, a couple of days ago, Akpabio comes back and said, oh, forget about what I said. I take it back, I didn't say it, right? Don't you think that needs an investigation? But the point is this, Akpabio was trying to tell them, better stop this nonsense, because we are all in it together. And now that Akpabio has now come out to say, okay, I didn't say what you thought you said, I said. People said, well, we heard you say it. Okay, it's done. The question now is, will they get back to the investigation? It's going to die. Nothing is going to happen to it. So this is why I'm saying, those of us in the diaspora, each one, we need to, all I'm saying is skills. We need to take projects. But it's not giving things out to people. It's not going to the hospital, give them stuff, give them the skills you have. How do you bring it to play? So that's the work that needs to be done in a place like Nigeria. But a lot of these foundations in the diaspora understand they are setting themselves up because they want a big job out of the government, or they want to they are looking for their own personal gains, right? That's the reason why I said my friends who are in government, a lot of them, the day they become politicians and take on the position, I lose their telephone number. Because I cannot discuss with you anymore. I will not call you. Because if you do something, I'm going to hold you to it. Now, if I maintain that friendship with you, it really restricts me from actually challenging you.
Yeah, I know for a fact that you and one of the current state governors grew up together as very tight friends and maintained a very close friendship until he became governor. I don't know what has happened to that friendship, but you know, but I know I don't want to mention what governor.
Right, but my thing always is this: serve the people, right? Do well for the people. But again, sometimes because you know somebody too much or you're too close to the people, you know too much, right? And so the way you are looking at things is different from the way the person out there is looking at it. Sometimes I'm too close to these people. I know what happens and I cannot contain myself with it. But at the end of the day, it's to make you better. My friends know me. If I know something is going on with you that I think is going to sink you, I'm going to come after you. Right. You know, I am not the kind of friends that will encourage you when I know something is not right. I'm going to challenge you to it, and if you don't like it, that's for you. But I think friendship is to build each other, is to make each other better. So I cannot I'm not one that will watch somebody go down the tubes without letting them know that, listen, you have to do something about it. This is the reason why some of my friends, their wives are closer to me than they are, because their wives know something happens. They give me the call. I am going to go after the issue. So, a lot of people don't like to listen to criticism. This is what I'm saying about philosophy. How do you get to be humble and at the same time maintain that position? Because look, a failed state is a political body that has disintegrated to a point where basic conditions and responsibility of a sovereign government no longer functions properly. That's what Africa is going through. So we need to start to build back this institution. They were in this bad, like I think those of us who went to school for me in the late 70s, in the 70s, we just had a country that we were just looking up to so much. Look, a 17-year-old boy like me had a program on television. I was reading news. I had a book review on and the television, MTV they call it there. Can you imagine? They would put a 17-year-old boy out there. I didn't even know today I look back and I see the opportunities I had growing up that these young ones cannot even dream about it. I was given wardrobe allowance. I was getting almost the salary of a college graduate. If my dad didn't withdraw me, university would have been a different story, right? I mean, we look forward. That's when we left the country to come here. Nobody was thinking of being outside the country. But the disintegration just took off. And then after 1999, this fake democracy came into play. That was it.
Right. We are going to go off. I am going to get us off in just a few minutes, and we will leave some questions on the table. One of the questions, if you can just, I know it's dangerous to ask a professor to only answer a question for 1 minute, But the question is, do you think, as I do, not me, as the person does, that independence for African countries has been a cost? That's the question. But we are going to go out shortly. But what I like to do is to continue the conversation. And I'm sure there are some people who would like to speak with you. So that once we go off, I'll urge everyone who wants to continue to converse to stay on. But before then, just answer that question.
Okay, quickly. Yes, independence is a curse, but is a curse because our understanding of what independence is we inherited institutions from Europeans that they used to control us, and we've carried on with that. We didn't build our own institutions. We just carried the same institutions forward. What I want us to do, if you throw away the independence and we are back to who we are, then we can go back and not trash our history, our ancestors, the way we were built on, how we survived before the Europeans. Can we just try to find what is good in all of these different ranges to then create a system out of? You know, this idea that everything African is traditional and backward has been one of the biggest curses for us. Because if we reject that part of us that is us, then who are we? Is it this colonial mindset? Is it this neo-colonial mindset that we inherited, that we want to use to then become who we're not?
Right, so you have a message from Dr. Naresh Vats in India, and he has just asked me to tell you that this has been great. And he's been watching all along on Facebook, and that he really thanks you because it's something that he can relate to completely. But I like to say before we go that our next webinar will be on August 15th. And our sole panelist on that day will be Professor Abiodun Alao of King's College, London. He is an African and was the first ever Black person to give the inaugural address at King's College in London, and was big in newspapers around the world when this happened 2 or 3 years ago. And his next book is called Holy Anger and Sacred Killings, Religion and Violence in Nigeria. He'll be with us on August 15th. Well, Dr. Ohiwerei, I cannot thank you enough for being here today for many reasons. One, because you've spent your time to do this with us. But secondly, because you have consistently, every time I have asked if you will please do something, you've said yes and you've shown up. There is no more respectable way to be a brother and a friend than that. I also, in particular, really like to thank you for my career in academia, because I could call you at 2 a.m. and say, here is what's going on. What do you think about how to approach this, that in academia? And you have always been available with your brotherly advice. And I really love you. I thank you. And today you have been really gracious, but in particular, there is one posting that I really like to refer to. It is from someone in Nigeria who wrote, I did not think before this that that when people went abroad, that it still considered being part of the African culture, and you have given me hope, she said. And thank you for doing this. And I'm really thankful to you and thankful to all of our participants. And until next time, have a great weekend. And once again, anyone who can, please stay on and we'll continue to converse. Thank you.